one of the most inspiring speakers Mooroopna has produced, and a lifetime commitment to the Mooroopna community. Hello, I'm Graham McCartney. Today's guest is Roger Bullen. This is Mooroopna Legends.
Roger Bullen, welcome to Mooroopna Legends.
Thank you.
Yeah, a legend. How did you get the title of legend?
Well, I think the bloke named Pat Sleeth had the title of legend here, and I took it off him.
We'll talk about Sleeth a little bit later on.
Yeah.
Roger, growing up in Mooroopna, you were born in the Depression years, grew up during the World War II years. What was Mooroopna like in those days?
Well, it was a very small town, and everybody were great mates, because there were so many fathers away at the war. Everybody had to look after each other's family, because the mothers did it very hard at course. School was tough. The strap was a much used weapon in those days, particularly on the Wongs and the Harbrows.
They seemed to cop it all?
Well, I had my fair share too, but they were the leaders of the pack.
You mentioned the Wongs and the Harbrows. They're big Mooroopna names.
Yeah, well, the Mooroopna Wongs, Harbrows, Powers, Hattons, Nichols, all born here.
Roger, growing up in those years, there was no television, no Facebook, no smartphones, no social media, no TV. There was radio. What did you do to entertain yourself?
Well, we virtually lived at the river. The river in those days was crystal clear. Everybody drank straight out of it, the water straight out of it. It was just pure. And we just camped, fished, shooting. It was just our way of life, as well as sport, of course.
And you mentioned sport. You've got a great sporting tradition. The youth club, both cricket and football, you were involved heavily there?
Yep. Yeah, well, the youth club was the thirds in those days. And our manner of transport, we go on the back of Lou Woods' truck, tray-body truck, just all pile on like a mob of sheep. And he'd take us to wherever we were playing, and he'd umpire the game at the same time. We were coached by old Jimmy Nichols, who was a legend in Mooroopna. And he was a marvellous man that he put in so much time, even Eric Castleton later on. And our parents weren't involved at all. It was just these two blokes seemed to run everything for us. They were worth their weight in gold.
Was there parent involvement in those days? We often hear now football clubs complaining there's no parent involvement. Has that changed over the years?
Yes, that came later on. It was back in those days that wasn't evident at all. Not like it is now with the interference with some fathers with their sons.
Yes, it certainly happens in all sports.
I discovered that later on when I was coaching.
Okay. Before we get on to your coaching career, let's go back to your playing career. How did you get in? You played with Mooroopna. How did you go to Geelong?
Well, in those days it was open slatted. There was no zoning, no areas at all, and you could go wherever you pleased. And Geelong had a history of players from Mooroopna. There were 7 players from Mooroopna played with Geelong, and 6 of our family were all involved on their family tree.
So let's have some of those names.
And Fred Hawking, my mother's brother, played 112 games with Geelong, premiership player, best and fairest winner. Arthur Irvine, Clyde Helmer, which is our best and fairest trophies named after, John Helmer, myself, Ash Foley, and Jeff Horgan, Arthur Irvine.
You played about 3 years with Geelong?
3 years, got $10 a game.
Overpaid, they said?
Oh, well, that's the subject of argument. But
you played centre half forward with Geelong mostly?
Every game bar one. I played in the centre one game.
And I think you kicked 22 goals? in that time?
27.
27. I'll have to amend the AFL stats.
I had a good day the day I kicked the 27.
Now, why did you leave Geelong? Yes, obviously he's playing centre half forward.
Well, I played centre half forward on the biggest names in the game and proved myself. I played in 3 finals in the MCG, and that was enough for me. There was no other incentives to stay there because everybody went coaching in those days, unless you had a business of your own. That's what happened. You just went on the coaching circuit. And I went to Bill McMaster, who later on coached Geelong, was coaching Mortlake in the Hampton League. And he came and saw me and wanted me to go to Mortlake for a year. And I said no. And he said, we'll give you 30 quid a week to play football, which was a fortune. We had a house with free rent, free meat, free wood, free everything. I still wouldn't sign. And they said, we'll give you £160 to sign. Well, that was like 10 grand. And that's how I went to Mortlake, had 1 year there, and I wanted to get into the coaching field before my name sort of disappeared. And the going rate in those days was 25 quid a week for an ex-league player. And that's a story on its own, where we went with an interview with them. You want to hear that?
I think everybody would love to hear that story.
Well, what happened is I put in for the job at the Rainbow in the Southern Valley, and they got in touch with me and said, yes, you've got the job, come up and meet the committee. And my father said, well, I'll come with you with your brother Tony, so you got back up. We'll be professional, we'll wear suits. So we did all that. We drove all the way to Rainbow. It was February, it was 104 degrees. And these 3 idiots from Mooroopna got out of the car in suits. And the entire committee came out of the middle pub to meet us in shorts and thongs. We went into the pub to start discussing things, and all of a sudden they said, that 25 quid a week, they said, we've never ever paid that sort of money, and neither does any of the district clubs around here. And I said, well, I didn't come here to argue or barter. I said, I came here for that amount of money I want. I said, you either pay me that or I walk. By 3 o'clock we're all half shot and they had me down to 20. At 5 o'clock we couldn't stand up, and I asked them if I could do the job for right home. And that's how I went there for 1 year and stayed for 9. Had 4 grand finals in my first 5 years, won 2 of them, including a double. And I was captain and coach of the interleague side for 7 years.
You obviously loved that time in your life, at this stage.
Wouldn't change anything at all.
Yeah. At your 80th birthday, you told a great story about how you met Lois. You'd like to share that one with us?
Well, what happened is you recruited down there, and they put us all in a pub together, the recruits.
This is back at Geelong.
In Geelong. And to get into Geelong, you're playing the practice matches, then the final list comes out. And you're either on it or you're off it. So blokes that had played the year before, some of them got dumped off, new blokes went on. And there was no discussion with players or anything like there is now with managers and all this sort of thing. You just turned up there and heard what came out, whether you were going to play or you weren't going to play. And while I was there, when I first went there, I had my eye on this blonde telephone receptionist, telephonist, and there was another bloke recruited there from Fish Creek, and he said no, he said, I'm going to ask her out. And I said no, so we had an argument about it, and I said, well, what, so we wait until the list comes out, and you might get sent home or I might get sent home, so we'll shake on it. Whoever makes it can pick up the girl. So we did that. He got dumped, so he was sent home. And then it came to I was going to ask her out to the dance, and I had to go and do a fortnight's camp from the army for my national service. And I got picked to play against Collingwood in my first game. I still hadn't met her, and it was a big story on the back page of the Sun about this young bloke playing centre forward for Geelong in the match of the day against Collingwood. During the game, I ran over the boundary. There's a fair dinkum too. I ran over the boundary and to get the ball, and there she was standing at the fence with her father. I thought, well, this is a sign from above. And after the game, I'd played well. I won an award, gotten the best players. And I went to the dance that night, and she was standing on the edge of the dance floor. And I said, I walked up and done up to the nines and my Geelong blazer and everything, and I said, I saw you today. And she said, just looked me up and down and said, you couldn't have seen me, I was at the football at Collingwood.
Deflated the ego a bit?
Oh, it just flattened me. I thought everybody knew who I was, and she didn't have a clue who I was. But anyway, after a couple of weeks with a lot of hard work, she finally went out with me. And up till now, we've been married for 58 years.
Yeah, magnificent effort. 4 daughters?
4 daughters.
9
granddaughters.
9 granddaughters?
A lot of girls for a football coach.
Exactly. But they're all been heavily... It's a big family atmosphere, isn't it, the Bullen family?
Yeah, and they've all been top sports girls, so right from the time they were kids. Softball, netball, basketball, tennis, swimming. They all played and did the lot.
Spent a lot of time in north central Victoria. What brought you back to Mooroopna?
Well, I was building up there, and what's called the wheat quota came in, where there was no market for wheat whatsoever, and the whole area where I was a wheat farmers. And they just shut up shop. There was just no work at all, so I decided to come back to Mooroopna and put in for the coaching job there.
We'll talk about the Mooroopna coaching job in a moment, but I want to talk about the building. Your father was a builder?
Yep.
Your brother Tony was a builder?
Yep.
Your nephew Mark was a builder? It's well in the family?
Yeah, we built a lot of buildings in Shepparton and Mooroopna over the years.
Just name some of those. St Mary's comes to mind.
Oh, St Mary's School, the Peppermill Hotel Motel, various retail shops in Shepparton, different banks we've done a lot of work on. We're heavily involved with the Kids Town. When that started, that was just a great big mound of dirt, nothing else there. And we built the big slides and the small slides and everything to get it off the ground.
Designed by your father off the back of a matchbox?
No, it was actually designed by a bloke in Melbourne, but it was one of the most intricate designs I've ever seen. It took me weeks and weeks to get my head around it, but Bill just seemed to pick it up like as easy as anything.
Yeah, he had that unique talent to be able to sort of picturise something and then transform it into...
Yeah, he could visualise things straight away, even though they were very complex. But and he designed a lot of places that we did too, of course, particularly houses. He could draw plans very well.
Let's talk about Mooroopna and coaching. What are some of the great names that you coached at Mooroopna?
Well, I came at a time when what disappointed me a little bit was a couple of players in particular, like Barry McCarty and Barry Kilpatrick, were just at the end of their tether. But I could see how they played. I would have loved to have coached them when they were at their top. We had great players in Dowie Bucks, a brilliant player, Stewie Florence, and Stewie Freeman for that matter. But we had a pretty good side, but the league was very strong then, and it was very difficult once you made the finals. Graham Woods was another one. He could have easily made league football. Wonderful player.
Leading goal kicker Graham Woods, and certainly had that ability to be able to know where the football was coming from.
Oh, tremendous footballer.
Yeah, you spent after coaching Mooroopna, you coached the thirds for a couple of years.
Yeah, I coached the seniors for 4 years. Then I went out and coached Murchison for a year. Then I came back and coached the seconds for 2 or 3 years. And I coached the thirds for a few years.
Mooroopna as it is today, and when you grew up, what's been the major change?
Football-wise or town-wise?
Town-wise.
Oh, well, the growth, of course, is something that comes to mind straight away. But I suppose we're one of those, we always, of course, had aggro with Shep. Like I can go back to when my father played in the 3 premierships from Mooroopna in the late 30s, just before the war. And the medals, Shep were playing Mooroopna in one of the grand finals, and Shep was so much favourites for that they made the medals out for them before the game even started. Then had to hide to present them to the Mooroopna players. My father threw his in the river on the way home. It's still there to this day. Some of the great characters of Mooroopna, and they've had many characters over the years. Well,
who do you rate as being the greatest character?
No, there's been a lot of funny men we employed, but most of them too. But Gundy Jones was one of my favourites. Very, very funny man, tied up with the footy club, of course.
Yep.
We had Paddy Casey, Wild Irishman. We're only talking about them the other day. There's a stack of them.
Yeah.
Cliffy Jones and Wally Jones. Cliffy Jones used to pinch a bike every time he got drunk.
Yeah. Butler what?
And Cliffy Jones, when he pinched bikes, he used to throw them in the channel when he woke up the next morning. And when he was working for us, we just paid him, and he went down and bought a brand new Malvern Star from Jaggies. Woke up in the morning and saw it there and thought, gee, I'll pinch another one, so he threw that in the channel too.
Pee Wee Young?
Oh yeah, funny man, Pee. Actually, Pee Wee was a very good footballer too. A lot of people don't realise how good he was.
Haven't you spoken to him? He'll tell you.
Oh, he was a very good player.
Yeah, and of course, others, your brother-in-law, Chummy Baldwin.
Yeah, well, he was one of those, because nobody changed clubs in those days. They were very loyal. Didn't mind a fight if it was on. Always against over the river, of course. But there were some great players in this league in those days, not only with Mooroopna, but Billy Tyquin from Lemnos, Rick Brasher from Koi, Orb Downing from Stanhope. That's great players. Dave Newman at Dongala.
Any regrets about leaving Geelong now so early?
Oh, never, no. I've always said that. Not once have I ever regretted the moves I made. There was just nothing there for me, except that I needed
an income, obviously.
A better income than we had. I was married then with a young baby, and when I look back on it, I played on all those big names, and in Melbourne, like Ted Whitten, Neil Roberts. Every centre-half-back and every team was a champion. And I did well against a lot of them.
You always had a strong community involvement?
Always.
Yeah. Probably inherited from your parents? You were very active in the local community?
Yeah. We were all heavily involved with the church. I still am, with the Church of England. We had... and all of us, all the blokes that knocked around together at that time, with the Harbriers, the Wongs, or everybody we were talking about, we were all in the Church of England Boys Society, which was a youth club of its own. And I remember they sent us on a camp to Frankston. And we all got there, none of us had ever seen the sea. And we were just mesmerised by it. And we'd been there for about 6 hours, and it was time for the evening meal. And the Mooroopna blokes were missing, so all the leaders were running around thinking blokes had drowned or disappeared or whatever. They came racing down there, we were all still standing there looking at the sea.
You're still involved in the community, the Historical Society?
Yeah, I've done a lot of work for the Historical Society over the years. Every time I did put everything up, they took it down and shifted.
So you had to do it again?
Yeah. And I was on the Board of Guardians of the church for many years, and lay preacher quite often. And I'm still involved now in the church.
You're involved with the tennis club too for a while?
I was president of the tennis club. Had a pretty good career in tennis with Tommy Haig. We won quite a few tournaments.
That's right, and of course you, I think, were responsible for barring drinking alcohol at the tennis, is that right?
Oh, that was one of the problems. We got reported actually playing tennis, Tommy Haig and I.
Tell us more.
Oh, we were playing the team up in America in the pennant, and they had a bloke who was carrying on a bit, and so he did the block, we did the block, and it got very fiery. But he was very unpopular, this bloke, and when we fronted the tribunal, they all knew what he was like, so they were laughing behind their hands. So we only got a smack on the wrist.
Young people today, with your 80 years plus experience in life, what would you say to them?
Well, respect number one. All the things we did when we knocked around, we got into a bit of trouble. We didn't steal, and we didn't wreck things, and we didn't knock off cars and all this sort of thing. But other trouble we got into a fair bit. And if the law came on, used to come to the school on the Monday, and you'd see them walk past the window in the police uniform, you think, oh, what did we do on Saturday night, what did we do on Sunday? And you'd be racking your brains because you usually had a guilty conscience. But we stuck like glue, the Mooroopna blokes. You were never left on your own if you were in trouble.
Roger Bullen, you're a legend. Yeah. You've certainly made a great difference to the Mooroopna community, and we thank you for your time today, and we look forward to talking again sometime in the future.
Thanks, mate.